All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Chloe. I'm on the video team at Jazz Lincoln Center. In just a minute, we're going to join Jazz Lincoln Center Orchestra saxophonist Sherman Irby. He's going to discuss his work as a composer, delve into his approach to writing and arranging, and share tips with anyone who wants to develop their own skills as a composer. After the lesson, Sherman will answer some questions from you guys. At that time, I'll jump back in and explain how to do that. In the meantime, if you have a question, feel free to shoot me a chat or a chat into the chat room for everyone to see. I'll be checking that occasionally. And with that all being said, I'll turn it over to Sherman.
Hello. I hope y'all are doing well. I hope y'all are making use of this time that we have in our homes, either with your families or if you're apart from your families, you can just have something else to concentrate on. So I'm glad you all are here. And let's get to it. It's a good time if you're going to be writing something. It's a good time to get to it because you can concentrate on it a little bit more. Usually when I'm writing composition or work or something like that, I'm on the road. So I'm playing and I'm trying to study and I'm trying to write, and there's a lot going on. They say that that chaos is good for you. I don't know. I'm enjoying this, little time of getting time to concentrate on some things here now. So I try to make use of it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about writing for a large work. And basically, I'm going to just give you an idea of what I do, how I prepare myself for it, how I put it all together. And I was thinking about it the other day. I said, let me write myself an outline of what I do. And what I what I ended up was like 3 pages full of stuff. An outline form, and we're going to share that with you all. And I didn't realize I did all of that until I actually wrote it all out. It surprised me. But each one of these things in this outline is what I do. Everyone has their own way of doing it. Wynton has his own way of writing. Maria Schneider has her own way of writing. Ted Nash has his own way of writing. John Clayton, he has his own way of writing. He has his own way of preparation of what he does in order to put the fine music that he puts out. This is my way. So this is a way that you could do it. So how you can compose a large work. The first thing you have to do is select a topic. It could be about anything that interests you. It may be something that you might have remember from childhood. Say something that interests you back in the day, like you may have done baseball. Baseball may be a topic for you, or science fiction. You might have been into science fiction, or marbles, playing games. It could be idea just okay. Let me write something on childhood games, playing darts, marbles, jacks, whatever, whatever your interest was. For me, I really got, my interest was Inferno, was Dante's work, which came later in life. A commission that I've been working on now that I finished. We were supposed to actually perform last week if it wasn't for the shutdown, but called Musings of Cosmic Stuff. This stuff about space. And I was really into science fiction and astronomy when I was growing up. And so I picked that topic. So, this is giving you an idea of what you can pick, something that will interest you. And then after you pick an idea, you go and it'll be a good idea to do some research to see if you can find enough information to even do something on a larger scale. Say if you got an idea about, let's say, about coffee. you want to write something on coffee. Is there enough parts about coffee between the production of it, the places in the world what it's made of, in order to do a large scale work that you can put together? You may say, this may not be the right thing. I had an idea of doing something on the lifespan of man, from childhood up to time up to death and to old age, and Eric Erickson's was going to be like the basis of that. And I did research on it, and I read up on it, and I was like, I don't know, this doesn't really hit me like I thought it would. It's a whole bunch about psychology, which is fine, but it just something that just didn't motivate me as well. So after you conduct that little inquiry, you find out, okay, whether you like to do this, because you're going to spend some time on this subject. So after you figure that out, then you have to really start to gather information. This is the beginning of your trek of really diving into a subject. So you have to find the popular books on the subject. Now, when I started musing of cosmic stuff, one of the first books I got was Neil deGrasse Tyson's Astronomy for People in a Hurry, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. That was the first book I read. It was a fascinating book, and Neil deGrasse Tyson is good at bringing people in to things, into the subject of astrophysics, astronomy, the things about the universe, beginnings, the ending of the universe, that kind of thing. He brings you into that. Then I picked up his book Origins, which he also has on DVD. When I was doing Inferno, I, of course, had to dive into the work itself, because I was doing a project on a work. So the Divine Comedy. Now, one thing that I found out about the Divine Comedy, because it's written in Italian, you have a lot of different transcriptions of it. And there's a lot of things a little different, but some were recognized as being very good, some were not. So you had to pick and choose. I actually read 2 different ones just to make sure that I kind of understood what was happening. And this was an actual good guide that I was able to get to, Dante Worlds. So you look for the books on the subject, popular books on the subject, and then other information that you can find. You go online, it's like, of course I go online to go stuff, but you don't go to Wikipedia. You may go to University of California. You may go to Penn State, to their websites, and find information, depending on where they specialize on different things, Columbia University, and look for publications, or they may have a database. For Dante, they had a wonderful database called Dante Worlds, which had a plethora of information and graphs and pictures and things like that to kind of give you a sense, especially for somebody who's a layman like myself, of what the subject was about. Sometimes dissertations will help. Sometimes people will put their dissertations online. They did all of this research and you benefit from it. It's a lot of heavy read, but it gives you an overall perspective of the subject that you're really getting into. You can interview people knowledgeable on the subject. I was very fortunate to have a very nice sit-down meeting with Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. It was very informative. It helped me put my ideas together, because I did, one of the things you do when you go into an interview, go and read first. I figured that out. You have to study up as much as you can so you can get as much information and absorb it as you can. And so I tried to be as prepared as I could, and sat down with him and learned a lot, and was able to put together the show that I needed. To Dr. Sean Carroll too, from Caltech. He actually did the words for the script. He actually did the script for the show, the Supernova show, which is, music of cosmic stuff. He did the script for it. I was able to talk with him and narrow down my ideas and kind of make sure that I have everything in the right perspective. Also, you can find inspiration from other artistic expressions on the subject. One of the ones that I really, really loved was a book, were the drawings, the illustrations of Gustave Doré. And I'm just going to share this with you real quick. I don't know if you can see this. Give me a thumbs up if you all can see this. All right, good. This is a very good book. I have it in hardcover also. For some reason, I think I might have loaned it to someone, which never do that. Oh God, loses stuff sometimes. Anyway, the Doré illustrations of Dante's Divine Comedy. Gustave Doré did all of these famous illustrations. It gives you another perspective on how to interpret your music. It gives you other ideas. It gives you another way of thinking. All of this stuff, along with just the information or just the work, but what other people might have thought about that work or written about that work during different periods of time. You know, Dante's era was in the 13th century. Okay, you got all of that. You got the 14th and 15th. You got other artists that came up with different things, and later century you had Botticelli that had illustrations and other artistic works. You had Rodin with the Gates of Hell and the other statues and works like that you can pull from. They'll give you inspiration. William Blake did a lot of crazy out of this world type of artistic works that you could pull from. As a matter of fact, something more recent. See if I can grab it. All right, that's a little fall there. I went to a great exhibit at the Smithsonian at the African Museum in Washington, D.C. And this is a book from that exhibit, The Divine Comedy. They got artists from all over Africa to do work on Dante's work. Different expressions, different ideas, everything from paintings to sculptures to audiovisual type of displays and artwork. And they took the whole African Museum and put all of that stuff in it. And I spent a day there just absorbing it, trying to get as much information as I could. That's one of the things that we do. At least that's something that I do, really get myself into the subject. Because before I write anything, I want to make sure that I did understand what I was going to be writing. The worst feeling that you can have is that you're commissioned to write something and you pick a subject and you just write anything that doesn't have anything to do with it. You don't want to do that because you spend so much time on it. You want to have some pride in what you did. You know, people may not like it. It doesn't matter. It is an expression of you. So I wanted to make sure I did my part. I said, this is my expression. People have been doing stuff on Dante since the 13th century. So I want to put my part in that. Then after you observe all those, what everybody else has done, give you kind of to give you the other inspiration. You make sure you take detailed notes on your findings. And what I mean by detailed notes, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, but it's really, really important to have good notes because you're going to be going back to them. Let's say right now, the next piece I'm going to be writing is going to be Purgatory. Now with Purgatory, which is the next book in Dante's work, he's already been through hell and he's going to go through Purgatory, which you're going up a mountain. So I wrote notes here. You can see now on the screen the notes of Anti-Purgatory, more notes, the Valley of the Rulers, I put all different different things about what he envisioned there, different stories, different characters. I try to put those in so I have a holistic look at what was happening in each one. Here's Terrace 1, Pride, Envy. And I put all these things down and I put them on my computer. At first I write them on paper, but then I make sure I put it back on computer so it can be backed up. One of the things that I hate is the initial notes. If the initial notes that I wrote for Inferno, I cannot find. It happens. You move, you start cleaning things up, or somebody start cleaning stuff up for you and things get lost. Put it on the computer, back it up. That's another thing to learn. Organize them. Make it easy for you to go back to your notes. It's a simple thing. Some of the things that you learned in high school, Lord knows you're going to need them for the rest of your life. And as a jazz musician, I didn't know I would need to. That's not something that I thought was going to be in my purview. I was just going to be playing notes, playing music, having a good time. And you start getting into writing music and you start doing commission work, you want to make sure that you utilize those things. Organizing your notes, making good notes, organizing them. After that, you've done your studying. Now it's time to create a story. That gets to be a hard part. So you have to organize all of the elements of your research. Man, I got to go through all this stuff I did again. Yeah, sometimes you have to reread the material one more time just to get it firm in your head, especially as time goes by and you have other things going on at the same time. You want to make sure that you're fully prepared to put together this show. So you organize the elements of your research. You identify your overall goal of what you want to present. What is it I want to do? For Inferno, I wanted to present Inferno. What did that mean? I want people to have an oral vision of what the different circles of hell were and his journey through them. That was my idea. That's what I wanted to do. So I identified the overall goal, and I'm going to show you what I did for the muses of cosmic stuff. And I believe it's good to write this stuff down. I wrote down, muses of cosmic stuff will be a presentation of music and narration inspired by our universe and the stellar phenomena it contains. Okay? Again, music of cosmic stuff is a presentation of music and narration inspired by our universe and the stellar phenomena it contains. So I have an idea. This is what I want to present. Okay? It will showcase my music with the Lincoln Center Orchestra with Wynton Marsalis. That's important because you have to know who you're going to be presenting this, how you're going to be presenting this music. Narration would be featured with each movement by William Shatner and or by other scientists, by scientists or actors, whoever we have to narrate. We'll be very fortunate William Shatner to still be able to do this show. I'm a big science fiction fan and I'm a Trekkie, so William Shatner, I love him. Then I talk about how much time it's going to take. All right, each performance will be split into 2 50-minute sets with an intermission. Now I wrote this stuff down before I even wrote one note. Each movement would be around 5 to 7 minutes long, but commentary no more than 3 to 4 minutes. Because if you don't get an idea, you just write too much stuff and then you have to start cutting and you start wasting time. Try to be as organized as you can beforehand. It'll make it so much easier. So you outline, first you identify your overall goal, you outline and list the different parts of the story you want to tell. Okay, so I did all this research and I talked to all these people and Dr. Tyson I gave him a list of things that I wanted to outline. He said, why don't you add this? Or why don't you take away this? The same thing with Sean Carroll. I said, why don't you put this in so you can write about, you can get like an overall view and have a chance to put a story together. So I put the Big Bang. Of course, I want to start it off with the Big Bang. That's going to be the first one. When we think of the universe starting, that's the first thing we think about, right? Then you think about the quantum. It's just as an idea. You think about the quantum. I want to think about dark energy. I want to think about dark matter. I want star nurseries, galaxies, planets, all those things, supernova, the whole universe itself. I wanted to go through all of those different subjects, and I would write them down. And then I would edit and combine the story parts when it needs to be. When I was thinking of supernovas, if you can see here, the spherical, let's see, supernovas and black holes go together because the creation, for what we know right now, a supernova a supernova occurs when a star collapses and then explodes out and spreads out all of the matter that was contained in it. But then a singularity is built sometimes and makes a black hole. And so we were talking about, okay, this is more, you want to talk about one or the other, but sometimes you can't do all of that in order to create a show because you have too many parts. You have too many things that you're trying to portray in a show that's less than 2 hours. So we combine those two. That's something else that you would have to do. Find things that are related to each other and sometimes combine them. It will make more sense. It will help you with timing. And if you do that ahead of time, it'll save you time later on. All right. Another thing is to determine the best places to divide movements or provide sets. I know when I'm writing for the Lincoln Center Orchestra, if we're doing a show at Rose Hall, I need 50 minutes per half. Usually 50 minutes per half means 35 to 40 minutes of music because we start talking in between and that takes up time. And even more so that we having a script in this one. So I know there's going to be a certain amount of time of the script being read. So I had to make sure that my timing was going to be right. I got the amount of songs down. I didn't want to have a whole lot of songs at 3 to 4 minutes because we'll talk about imperatives in a minute. I want to make sure that I was able to put a show together that made some sense. So what I did was I took 6 songs in one half, 6 songs in another. And I split it. I made a story and a story. I actually made 2 stories for this show. And if you see here at the top, I talk about it. The show will likely tell 2 stories. This is before I wrote a note. I wrote all of this. The first would display the beginnings of the universe and its expansion to its current imagined state. That gave me a goal that I can get to before I wrote a note. Something that made more sense and give me a chance to actually do something that made some sense. The second would display the seen and unseen phenomena that affect our everyday lives, and it with a story with life itself. So I started my show, just to give you an idea, I started it out with the smallest thing, the Big Bang, and worked its way out to the end, just the whole universe itself. Then I wanted to find a way of coming back from outer space, something large. And that was a supernova and the black hole. And I worked at gravity, and I worked my way from big phenomena, big explosive phenomena, all the way back down to planets and to us, which is probably the greatest phenomena in the universe. Because as far as we know, it's just us, So there again, so I created 2 stories in a way. That gave me a roadmap that I can get with. Because you think of when you're doing this stuff, you may have gigs in between for us who are out there working, playing, or you're doing a 9-to-5 job and you're writing a big work, or you're teaching and you only have so much time, to do it. You give yourself these roadmaps. You get all of this work, all this preparation done before you start writing. All right? Everybody following me okay? Are there any questions? Any questions? All right. Now we're going to get to the next stage, which is number 4, develop initial composing notes. All right. What you saw that I had on the screen earlier, and I'll show that again, were my completed composing notes. So let me show that again so you have an idea what I'm doing here. These are my composing notes. I have to have them. When I start off, I say the Big Bang. Okay, I write a little bit about what it is. What is the Big Bang? Give me an explanation of it. Try not to be what the research I did. I was very technical. When I start getting to my composing notes, I try to be more general because I'm really hitting on the artistic side at that point. So for the Big Bang, I said the extremely small explosion that started it all. And the thing that I heard in my head was a pop from the band. Pop! I want to start off with that. A big, just a big thing. We have no idea, of what it was like to be, in the Big Bang. We have found that there is a sound from the Big Bang, and it persists all through, and that's the cosmic microwave background. Hence the name that I called the first movement, the prime singularity, aka the notorious CMB. Because that thing is something else. It's a continuous sound, which they say is the sound of the beginnings of the universe. So I put this stuff in, structures start to form, becoming more complex, and I started introducing the melody in threes. Why did I pick threes? For me, like every piece of matter seemed like it has 3 parts to it that combine to make it. Even when you start getting into the quantum, everything is basically in threes. So so one of the themes that I began dealing with was just 3 and 3 and 3 and 3, 6 different ways going back and forth between it. But these are the things that I came about. Okay, the instrument's playing the 3-bar theme, almost like a 6-bar theme. And I'll play a little bit of the MIDI playback for you so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. I outlined the instrumentation. I'm writing for our big band. I figured out what I needed, I considered my immediate and longer term uses for the work, meaning that I knew I needed to write something for the big band. I knew we needed to be able to play this on the road. I also knew that we needed to be able to play this without special guests having to be there. These were the imperatives that I had in the beginning. It needed to be for our big band without any other extra instrumentation. I didn't want that to be the considering factor of us playing it on the road or not. That was one of the things that Wynton has stressed to us about writing for the orchestra, something we can always play, something we can add into different sets while we're on the road so we can spread this music out. That was the same thing with Inferno. And for all the stuff that we do, we try to make it like that. I want to, determine if the movies could be played separately, determine if it could be performed with special guests or not. I considered the band that we're playing with, we're very blessed to have the best musicians in the world playing in the orchestra. I mean, these cats are bad. I've known some of them for a very long time. We've played in other bands. Marcus and I were both on Blue Note Records together. It just, we go back a long way. And I know what they can do, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. I capitalize on the strengths. And sometimes we make the music a little hard so we can all work on our weaknesses. We may write some hard stuff on the flute for me to deal with because that's, or the clarinet, because that's, the doubles are not my strongest suit. So I usually end up with more doubles than everybody else for all this stuff. So that's so we can keep growing. But you note all those things when you're writing, because you want to write for the group that you want to write for, if that's what you're doing. Then you state your aesthetic goals for the music. All right, do you want it swinging? My thing is I always want the stuff swinging. Okay, that's me. The first thing I think about, how can I have this some kind of way be swinging? Whether it's the regular swing groove or older swing groove, newer swing groove, swing like, or invert the swing groove, something to that effect. So because the groove, the swing groove is what makes jazz, for me. So I always try to put that. Then I think about, do I want it heavily orchestrated or do I want it more solo oriented? I think there needs to be a balance. You have to have some orchestrated things, but in order for it to be jazz, you have to have improvisation. If you don't leave room for that, you're not really playing jazz. It's almost like a concert band that's playing a swing rhythm. So I try to make room for that. You can do more or do less. You can do more or less. It all depends on how it's coming about. You say, I do want some. I only have like 4 soloists I want to feature, so I'll feature them, and then I have some more heavily orchestrated stuff. Or in our case, we have a band full of soloists. I like to try to feature everybody. Why not? Let everybody's voice be heard and make the music sound better. So it's always that goal of trying to find ways of getting 15 people to solo and have room to express themselves. So that's one of my imperatives, and that's what I try to put into the music. Again, I haven't written a note yet, but this is what I'm thinking about. I imagine my musical ideas. I go through my notes, and I go to the notes that cover each part of the story. I write down different musical ideas that can be used to illustrate each. I can talk about the different colors. I know this is kind of blue. I want this hot sounds. I like to feature the trumpets here. I like to get like this hot brass kind of thing. And I would write that down in my notes. Keys that I would think about. I need to have this in B. And I know it's going to be hard to play in B, but something about that key really gives and adds to the story. Onomatopoeia, that's a big thing for us in jazz ever since, Duke Ellington's been using it since the beginning of his writings. The sounds of trains. For me, I try to incorporate the sounds of hot, or cold, ice. In Dante's work, Dante used S's, the sound of S for the snake. He found different ways of using the words in order to do that, onomatopoeia, and we do it with music. So those kind of things I use to illustrate the parts, the things that I'm doing, and different forms. Since we're dealing with jazz, we have different we have different forms with 12 bar, 10 bar, rhythm changes, blues with a bridge, stuff written, music written like the American Songbook. Excuse me, more open end, modal. You kind of make I think I want this to be a modal type John Coltrane thing. Or I'm hearing like some Elvin Jones kind of mediums, just got. I said, okay, I'm gonna write this down as this being an idea that I want. Or I want something majestic. I want something majestic, like written for the movie Cleopatra or something. And I've done that. I want that kind of trumpet fanfare kind of thing to give an opening and then go into something else. I write those ideas down. I figure out who I want to feature. It can be pairs of people. In the case of this new work, I did a movement on planets, and I was hearing the music of Ornette Coleman. Something about this, it seems very, that earthy kind of thing. And I was thinking of, okay, I want to feature Wynton and Ted. Now I'm an alto player. I can say, hey, I'm gonna feature me. I'm gonna play. I wrote this piece. I'm gonna play on my part. But I'm hearing the way that they play that music together. He and Ted have like a thing together for that. So I wanted to feature that, and I'm gonna play a little bit of that for you. This is done with. Okay, let me make sure to share screen. This is done using MIDI sounds. Okay, this is not us rehearsing it. It's gonna sound like crap, but it'll give you an idea. Okay, so don't judge me too much. This is Planets. Can you hear that? It's trumpet and alto. Now the full band. That's trumpet and alto. Okay, so that gives you an idea of what I was coming up with featuring those two on planets. Now I'm gonna show you what I wrote down in my notes about that. Bold intro, rubatos in the beginning, trumpet alto duo statements in between. I'm introducing the two characters there. This is the two stellar bodies, basically. You have the big sound of a huge planet, that kind of thing. And then you have the two voices here. Shows the difference in the size of the planets. Rhythm section sets up a medium swing with double stop bass ostinato, no piano at all. All right. The flute swirling line, gaseous planets, clarinet is the water planet, harmon mute is rocky planet, trombones and soprano saxophone, ice planets. I'm trying to get those different sounds. The melody Ornette Coleman style, earthy, rural, folkish, a state of being, beautiful, resolute. I'm describing the kind of feel that I'm trying to get to. And I'm imagining this, how they're going to play it. It's not going to sound like you just heard. It's going to sound so much better because they're going to put their vibe on it. I can imagine it, but I can't make the computer do it. All right. Double time bursts, movement, orbits going around planets. You know, it speeds up, it slows down. An orbit of a planet around the sun is not the same time. It's not equal time. It's not 365 days. It could be 365 and a half days. It could be this. It can go back and forth. It can speed up and slow down. Just the nature of life. Then we go back to tempo, to the stately being, perception. All these little descriptions. If you do all of that, it gives you something to push for. Keeps you focused when you're trying to write, because it may take you a week to write a movement, and you're trying to make sure you stay focused on what you need to do. All right. But then I left room for solos. This song is like 6 minutes, so I left room for Wynton to really get a chance to play, and for Ted to get a chance to play, so people can really hear them soloing in that style. Then take the head out. I don't want to write too much stuff on this one, because I think it's enough information. You had information at the beginning. You had this groove. You had that sound of the counterpoint between the alto and the trumpet. And I just let it speak for itself. You wouldn't have all that in a small group gig, a small group tune. You have the head and you have the head out. You have solos in between. I wanted to do something like that. So that's what I mean by solo oriented. All right. So we got all of that down. I figured out how I wanted to feature the folk. I figured out the compositional styles. For that example, I wanted to do an Ornette Coleman kind of vibe. It could have been something more Duke Ellington oriented, like I did at the end of Inferno, when I wrote the feature for Joe Temperley, and almost like a Harry Connick feature for the baritone saxophone for the orchestra, leading the orchestra. I could have gone that kind of route. I could have done a more Ernie Wilkins kind of thing, a Wayne Shorter kind of vibe, which I did do in this work. I did one that I wrote actually for just the style of Art Blakey. It's something about his style. All right, so I did. I wrote all that stuff down, and then I make sure I have it all. I have it all written and organized and neat. And then I have to remember, and I often have to remind myself that it's only a guide. You don't have to do any of that. You can write all that stuff down and say, I don't want to do that. I want to do it like this now. But it gives you something to work with. It just kind of keeps you focused. And sometimes I would start, I would look at my composer notes and then and I start writing and it goes to a totally different kind of thing. And that's fine, because you're actually improvising at that point anyway. You're composing music, which is the next stage. You compose your music. You did all of your studying. You wrote down all the stuff that you did research. You took good notes. You formulated how what elements you're going to make in order to tell the story that you came up with. If you're doing it for one long hour and a half show straight, you prepare for that. If you're doing it with the intermission in between, you prepare to make the split and to make it where that the end of the first set need to be a certain kind of vibe to the song to be a good ending, and then a good beginning for the next set, and then a good ending for that second set. You making sure that the show would actually be a show. That's something that you learn how to do anyway, by playing, how to put a show together. So you take all of that into account and you write the music. You tell your story. You remember how the concert and the set should sound. You take note of the diversity of the solo instruments, because you don't want the stuff sounding the same. the vibe of the final movement. We talked about that, the vibe of the movement, but the vibe of the movements in general. Since you want to create a story, you want to make sure that you don't put too much of the same thing on the palette. If you make a dinner and everything on the plate is like salty, salty type of meats and no vegetables and no sweet and no nothing like that, you're just messing up your palate. You want it. You want to make it a journey. You know, you develop your solo orders. You make sure that that you don't have 4 tenor saxophone solos in a row. You divide it up. You think about how much face time you're going to have on the horn. You don't want your brass to be playing, for the trumpet players and trombone players. You don't want them playing the whole time. You have a 4-minute piece and they're playing 3.5 minutes. It's too much. Same thing with saxophones too. We get wore out too. So take those things in mind. Give space. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you a little bit of a score to kind of give you an idea of what I mean. This is the first movement, Big Bang. If you can probably see, this is the first note. Remember that big pop I was telling you about? Pop! That's what it looks like. You got it in the drums and all the horns, the brass, they're playing loud. And then the saxophones were playing soft and low. You have solo instruments going on, but then you have room to breathe. The trumpet has, the trumpets and the brass, they have space. They don't have to kill themselves. Look at all that space. Now, you see that? For those that, I don't know how many composers here or how many can read scores, but if you just take a look at the entire, if you just take a look at it, just think artistically, it's not covered in black notes. I try to make sure there's space. Here's a little bit more, but here is only a little bit more for certain instruments. It's not for everybody. And other people are basically soloing on changes. And you'll hear a little bit of this so you get an idea of what I mean. Then I have a solo section with backgrounds. It's only a few bars. Everything is in 6 bars here. So it's just 6 bars of, playing some filigree stuff, loud, crazy. A little bit of trombone, then they have more space again. A little bit of trumpet, then more space. All right? A little bit of brass, more space. And that really helps out to save the chops. If you kill them on your first movement, you won't have them for the rest of your piece. Y'all want to hear a little bit of this? Let's see. This is the Big Bang. That's where we're at here. 2 trumpets take over. Here we go right here. Everybody solo in the middle of their horns in the upper woodwinds. You see how weird that is? There's a lot of energy and stuff that's going on at the same time. Right now, you have Wynton playing his solo in the upper register, playing Burnout with the rhythm section, and they can just go completely out. All right. And then we're gonna come in with a background, which is the same thing we started off with. I'm playing piccolo. We have a clarinet up high. There's a baritone and trombone. Now we have a baritone solo. So I went from high to low because you're dealing with hot and cold in the Big Bang. The whole goal, everything that happened, it started off real hot, but then it starts to gradually cool. But you have elements here, elements here. You have all the opposites fighting against each other. Here's a background. I cooled it off right there. That's on purpose. We'll look at my notes in a minute. Yeah. All right. That was the Big Bang. Let's look at my composing notes. So you have an idea. Extremely small explosion that started it all. Pop from the band. Things are hot and churning. Matter hitting, splitting, destroying, combining. Pairs soloing fast but quietly. Hot. Structures start to form, becoming more complex as they combine, introducing the melodies in threes. One of the things I didn't write down in my composing notes, with structure, I used a 12-tone roll. For those of us who know what that is, it's 12 notes that 12 different notes in a row, and it's usually done in a cell. And I use that kind of concept in order to give this building kind of thing, the intervallic building. And I did it with the bass. I stay hot. Everybody starts soloing together. You heard that. That was that crazy stuff. Creating a massive sound. High instruments playing in the 3-bar theme. Wynton immediately starts playing Burnout in his higher register. Gradually, he comes to his middle register, representing the slight cooling of the initial event. You know, from the very beginning of the Big Bang, it's very, very hot, and then it immediately cools down. And we're talking about million parts a second, that kind of thing. Baritone saxophone solos next in lower register, hot and cold. You bring back the melody, start to take out more voices to cool. You've seen that in the score. The universe cools so much, the universe cools so matter can start forming. I mean, it was so hot in the beginning that you really couldn't put matter together. But then it started cooling down, and then the anvil will gives you the sound of forging, and that was done with the cymbal. These are the kind of things that I'm talking about. So I had my notes. I wrote the music. I put it all together, and that's what I've gotten to. You all have any questions?
Yeah, everyone. If you're just joining us, sorry to barge in. We are in the middle of a masterclass by Sherman Irby from Jazz Lincoln Center. In just a minute, or now, I guess, Sherman can start answering some questions from all of you.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment, first of all, to give a huge thanks to everyone for popping in and for continuing to support us. We wouldn't be here without you. And your continued support means so much to us. So in order to ask a question, you can go ahead and type me something in the chat, or what we do prefer is if you use the raise hand function so you can talk directly to Sherman. Just click participants tab on the bottom of your Zoom window and then press the raise hand button. And please make sure your name appears as your first and last name so I can call on you. And then I'll unmute your mic and let you ask a question. If you're watching on Facebook, I'll also be monitoring there if you wanted to type a question in the comments on Facebook, and we'll try to get to you. So which brave soul wants to start us off? All right, we have a question from Henry Burberry. Hi, Henry.
Hi, Henry.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this. I'm a big fan of your playing and stuff, so I think it's really great that we're able to listen to you talk about this stuff. And so my question is, just like when it comes to large works or even just like small works for like combos,
Mm-hmm.
I find that like writing out the harmonies and stuff seems like really overwhelming because I've never really studied this.
Mm-hmm.
So I was curious if you had any recommendations for like books about the theory behind all this composing and stuff.
Okay. Yeah, there are some good books. Um, I'm gonna give you a series of books that you can start looking through. One is just the whole basic concept of voicings, and it's a piano book. It's called the Jazz Piano Book. Um, the name escapes me now, but you'll be able to easily the name of the pianist who put it together. Actually, did a workshop with him and
Is that Mark Levine?
yeah, Mark Levine. Oh, there you
All right.
go.
I'm trying to help out here.
Oh, there you go.
I'll
Yeah.
put it in the comments.
Oh, great. Yeah, I did with a year a jazz camp with him at Monterey, and he's a great cat. But that book is an amazing book, just on basic voicings. That will help you when you start putting this stuff together. Putting instruments together, understanding colors and things that you can use. I like Rimsey Korsakov's book, The Principles of Orchestration. That was my go-to for a long time.
Thank you.
All right, and then the best thing you can do, I mean, on top of all of that, because that gives you the theory around, but you need to listen and try to transcribe the way the songs that were done by Ray Garland, by let's see, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett. Take the way that learn the songs the way they're presented. For a small group, you cannot go wrong with Miles Davis and Ray Garland. They just they put a song together well. You'll learn a lot from it just from transposing those. You can go to a book called a record called A Garland of Red. If you learn everything on there, you'll start to understand how songs are put together, how melodies are put together on top of chord changes, and how chord changes are put together to create these forms, and what sounds good and what doesn't. You'll hear that there.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Henry. Our next question comes from Joseph Tichy.
Okay. Hi, Joseph.
Hi, Joseph.
Hey, Sherman.
Hey.
Chloe, how you guys doing?
How you doing?
Hey, look, I am in no way as advanced as these other individuals here on the forum, learning how to compose and all that. I'm actually a beginner, somewhat, and my, being long in the tooth after serving in the Marine Corps, graduate school, and all this other kind of stuff.
And there's no time limits on any of this stuff.
Yeah.
No time limits.
I was wondering if there was anything. What I struggle with now is getting the scales committed to memory, in the chords. And was there anything out there that could be used as a training aid, so to speak?
Of putting scales to chords?
Well, no, for retention. I know you just got to play over and over and over again. But is there anything out there that would assist me?
You know what? I think for me, because I get to be forgetful in a while, and I'm getting more and more forgetful as time goes on. My teeth are getting longer, so
yeah.
I find that the act of writing things down helps out so much. I learned early to learn songs that way, and I learned them on the piano, not on the saxophone. Mm-hmm. So what I would do with, say for instance, okay, I'm trying to remember songs. I would say I'm gonna do 4 songs. I'm gonna learn these 4 songs. I'm gonna write down the melodies. I'm gonna write it on a sheet of paper, and I'm gonna make it so doggone clear that I can publish it from there. Mm-hmm. And then I'm gonna write the chord changes on top of the song and make sure that they're nice and neat. That's a lot of time to put into doing that. Mm-hmm. All right. For some kind of way, it imprints itself into your memory, because that's what it did for me.
Okay. I have to give that a shot.
Danny Harper, great pianist, my greatest teacher. I learned so much about not just being how to play jazz and understand harmony and theory and movement and things like that, but how to be a jazz musician. I learned from him. Danny Harper, he instilled that, write everything down and make it neat as possible. And it worked.
Yeah, I've kind of started that here. Notes from Walter.
Yep.
You, Wynton, and everybody else. And so
write it down and make it as neat as possible.
Okay, I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Joseph. All right, we have a question in the chat from Frederique. She wants to know, how long did the whole process take you from start to finish?
Okay. For Inferno, it took me 6 months to study and 6 months to write it. For this one I just did, Musings of Cosmic Stuff, it took me a little over a year to study and almost a year to write it. Okay, so that's basically about 2 years of investing time into it. I always, I'm of that thought, if you put more time into it, you have a better chance of having it sounding worth a damn, So I try, and if you're going to do something, you try to do it well. Again, not everybody may understand it or like it, but that's not your concern. That's for other people to judge whether it's good or not. But you want to make sure that you put your truest heart into it, and you give it all you got. And so, the studying and the cataloging, the understanding the subject matter, and then the writing, it takes time. Especially, for me, I was on the road all the time, and I was writing other arrangements and works in the middle of writing the music. And that's always the case with us in the orchestra. We're doing 1,000 different things at the same time. So that's how long it took, 2 years for this last one.
Awesome, thanks for your question, Frederique. Any other brave souls have a question? Feel free to raise your hand or shoot us a message in the chat. In the meantime, I'll just say that we do have these free live events going on every single day for the coming weeks. More masterclasses, conversations with the orchestra, Q&A with Wynton, really fun things like that. Our next class is going to be on Monday, and that's with Ted Nash, Monday, May 11th at the same time right here on Zoom. He's going to be talking about, it's actually going to be a two-parter with Ted. Part one is going to be, both parts are about Wayne Shorter. The first session will be Ted focusing on Wayne's work as a sideman, exploring his time with Art Blakey and Miles Davis. And then the following week, he'll pivot to Wayne's contributions as the band leader. So please join us for that one. And then for a full list of upcoming concerts and events and things like that, check us out at jazz.org. So our next question comes from Kevin Castellanos. Hi, Kevin.
Hi. Hi, Sherman.
Hey, Kevin.
Nice seeing you again. We actually
hey, man.
Mexico 2 years ago, I think. I was wondering, currently I'm writing and arranging a lot for saxophone quartet. So I was wondering, what advice could you give me in balancing both the voicings and when it comes to writing the reading parts for the section?
Okay. Writing for saxophone is especially when you're trying to chord things out, there's a few things you need to consider. If you're writing counterpoint, that's one thing. You try not to overtax and everybody get it in each other's way. You do try to give some space, but you do want clarity in the chords that are going to be played through the writing that you do. For saxophone quartet, I would not kill the baritone. Your first instinct is to write every bass note that you need the baritone to do, and it doesn't have to be the case. At times, you want to bring him out into the front too, to give some diversity. need to determine what kind of groove you're gonna do. The quartet is going to play with and going to follow. How you're going to imply the swing feel if you're doing it, if it's going to be jazz and you want it to be swinging. How you going to imply the swing feel without having a bass line going up under it? So this is just quartet, or that's all you're doing, right?
Yes, only quartet.
Yeah. So how are you going to apply that without having to have a bass line going all the time? So you have to be really inventive with your syncopation.
Okay.
All right. Balance, the players have to realize you have to play up under the lead. And in a quartet, that lead is going to split all over the place. So I would notate who is leading where. Put that in the music. Making sure that the music is written where you don't have to fight to know where the time is. Because it's jazz, we can play free. We play free, or we'll play. You know how orchestras kind of play in time, but not really be in time. You can't put a metronome to it because it's like moving around. In jazz we play with grooves, whatever groove it is. It can be the plethora of Afro-Cuban, Afro-Latin rhythms. It can be the different ways we can do swing rhythms, but we play inside of a groove. So we have to make sure if it's going to be jazz, okay, how am I going to make that stuff groove? How am I going to imply it? How am I going to do it without bass and drums? How am I going to make sure that the lines that I write are going to be swinging? What my imperatives are. It's all like the same stuff we talked about before. And then making sure that I know what the range of my instruments are. I don't want the lead alto to stay up in the high range or a soprano to play real high in order to fit these chords that I'm trying to hear. That's a lot to work with. So I suggest you really think it out in the beginning. What is your goal? You can follow some of these steps. What is your goal? Write it down, put it together. All right.
Great. Thanks a lot, man. Great class.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, we'll take a last question. This question comes from Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
Hi, Facebook. The person Facebook. No, this question comes from Mauro. Hi, Mauro. He wants to know if you ever feel like you're stuck in a routine, and if sometimes the arrangement ideas start to become repetitive or cliche. How do you break from that?
Yeah, we all get that. We all get that. We get it in our playing. I mean, playing and writing is all the same stuff. You tap into your imagination. Sometimes you feel like you're not that imaginative. So what I do is that I may erase what I've written and write something else. I've done it before. It's like, man, this doesn't really, man, this is kind of sad. One thing I try not to do is phone it in. I sometimes, okay, I can use the same technique I use in this other arrangement or this other song. I'll just copy this. I'm not going to phone it in. I'm going to try to start. For me, I start with measure one and I go to the end. That way it kind of keeps me from just writing the exact same thing. And because, I've been writing for a while, but writing for big band has only been for the last, 10 years or so of me really dealing with it. And 10 or 15 years. Oh, wow, it's been a little while. But to do it on a constant basis, I try to add a little something that I don't normally do to an arrangement or to a piece. I may ask the trumpet player, what is something that you deal with that is kind of hard to do? Well, we do these lip slurs. I practice this all the time. I'll say, okay, could you show me what it is and how you do? And then I try to write for that and try to add that into it a little bit at a time, because I'm just trying to add my skills, to add more information and more technique into my writing. I even practice writing some stuff that doesn't have a strong swing groove, because that's something I don't deal with all the time, just to give myself that technique. So in order to keep fresh, Start from measure 1, go to the end, try to add a little something different in there, and try to be open to things and be open to the environment that I'm around too. I was in Spain and I was writing something for the band, and I started writing Spanish stuff. It's just because I was just there, you know, being open to where I was and you know, where I'm at the moment. But it's you can feel like you're stuck. You may not be as stuck as you think, because it's hard for you to judge what you're doing. You know, if somebody else say, man, you know what, that sounds like the last 2 or 3 things that you wrote, then you need to be worried.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. Just because I have to say it, if it's within your means, please consider making a donation to Jazz Lincoln Center. We are a nonprofit, and we're so grateful for contributions of any amount. To our supporters and donors, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much to Sherman and to all of you for being a part of this today, for spending your Friday evening with us, Friday morning, or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the day, where you are in the world. Please keep up with us on social media as well. That's Jazz at Lincoln Center on Facebook. That's jazz.org on Instagram and Twitter. All of the information on upcoming sessions and more will be there. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll turn it over to Sherman for final thoughts, and we'll say goodbye.
Hey, you keep your heads up out here. Keep safe. Keep healthy. Stay focused. This will be over before you know it. So dive into what you need to dive into. Spend the time to do that. Spend the time with your family that you're around too. I know for me that I'm on the road a lot. I'm actually getting a chance to spend some time with my family. So there are small blessings in everything that happens out here. And so I hope to see you all on the other side. The come and see you in your cities. You come up to the stage, come and say hello, come and visit, come and listen to some music, come swing. All right. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherman, for those final words. And thank you again, everyone, for being a part of this. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend.